Don't waste $10,000 hiring the wrong agency. After working with over 350 brands and undoing the mess they've done in the business accounts, I'll show you exactly what to look for when hiring your next agency. And I'll even reveal things that agency owners talk about behind closed doors but don't reveal to you, the client. Now, the first thing is don't work with agencies whose teams are either too big or too small. That's because if you work with a team that's too small and they land a larger client than you, all their focus will go towards that client. If, for example, an employee gets sick or leaves, the work quality will get reduced. And this will end up hurting the amount of sales you're making. And generally speaking, the prices, it might be a slightly bit less than working with a larger agency. But the issue you'll run into is this inconsistency, and you'll end up losing money you don't even see, because that's the potential revenue you could have gotten by having better systems and a better team running your emails or paid ads in the first place. On the flip side, if you work with an agency that's too big, you'll want to make sure you're not their smallest client, because if you are, you're not going to have a bunch of attention paid to you. And if you, for example, have issues that come up, they're going to be swept under the rug, or they're going to be dealt with at the last scenario possible. The sweet spot for you is to work with a mid-size to a little bit of a higher size agency. That way you know they have good hiring systems. They can do that because essentially you're hiring an agency for their hiring skills, because they can find the right people, either whether that's in media buying, email marketing, customer support, etc., etc. They have the hiring skills and the talent and the systems around that. And you want to be kind of like in the middle of the revenue range of the other clients they work with, because if you're the highest, could be good for you. You also want to be kind of like either their average size client or their largest client for these mid-sized agencies. That way you get the most amount of time, and the systems they've built and the processes they use work for you. If you're one of their smallest clients, this might not be the best experience. It could be, might not be. This becomes more of a question mark with the agency, so you have to make sure that you vet them carefully, ask them the correct questions. Because essentially an agency really is an arbitrage opportunity for those with better hiring skills and great systems in a certain area to help different brands and companies and get paid for it. That's really what an agency is. The next thing is make sure the agency you work with sets the correct expectations. The issue with expectations is that most agencies kind of go into this race at the bottom. If you don't set up the highest potential revenue a client can achieve, you're not going to get hired. If you overset expectations, you're going to get fired after a while. But this is also on par with the expectations from the client. If you hire an agency, don't go for someone who is going to promise the entire world for you. Make sure you find someone who sets realistic, ambitious, and achievable results and gives you the reasoning for why these results are possible to happen. So for example, with the clients that we work with, every time we go into their Klaviyo account, we ensure that there's opportunities for uplift in sales and what specific these opportunities are going to be. So then we can create a document or a presentation to share that with the client to basically back up that the results and the goals, the KPIs we've set for the client are realistic, and we build a plan for how to achieve that. That's a very, very key part. And again, when it comes to brand owners, you do need to take some responsibility as well for. And when it comes to the brands, make sure that also the expectations just from the agency are realistic too, based on your results. Now, in terms of the pricing, you also want to have the sweet spot for pricing. You don't want to have an agency that's too cheap. Basically, this shows that, generally speaking, they might be too small, and the problems are going to rise in their systems, meaning the results you get, and their team, meaning in the speed of delivery, and again, the results you get. Agencies that are too expensive, generally I like to believe there's no such thing, because it's all relative to the ROI you get. The same thing goes for employees. If you have an extremely talented creative strategist, for example, that creates banger ads after banger ads, they ask you for 5 times more what the market rate is, and if you don't pay them, well, you're going to lose a very talented employee. If you do pay them, you retain the employee, and their value to the business is so high that even though they might be expensive, you're getting such an ROI, it doesn't really matter. Now, with this being said, You too need to understand what, for example, the ROI for you is going to be. With our clients, we go through the email marketing potential calculator. This basically shows how much revenue they have, how much percentage-wise they can get, and what the ROI would be for them after what we charge these clients. These same calculations you have to do in your head, and you also have to understand, as I mentioned before, vet the agencies properly to ensure that the results they promise are going to be the results you actually get, and understand over how long of a time horizon these results are going to come on. The next thing is the agency you work with should be focused on one thing. Would you rather work with an agency that, for example, has email marketing, SMS, meta ads, Google ads, SEO, landing pages, or a specialist agency that prioritizes and understands everything around email, everything about meta ads, or everything about Google PPC? These specialist agencies are going to be a lot more powerful because with a lot of changes happening in these areas, these kind of aspects of marketing, they're going to be up to date with what's going on, what are the best practices, and what to do in certain situations. The one who does it all and does all these services is going to be mediocre at everything. But the person, the agency that focuses on the one service that's very specific is going to become an expert at it. Now, the only exception to this rule, and this is a very rare exception because there's not many quality agencies out there, but there are agencies like this, and I know a couple of them, is boutique growth agencies. These are agencies who manage everything for everything I mentioned, the email marketing, meta ads, Google ads. But the caveat is they take on only a very small amount of clients. And it's a lot of times very difficult to become a client of theirs because they want to work with brands and companies who have a really great product they can scale, and they're going to charge you a lot of money for it. And I mean a lot of money. Building the same team in-house would definitely be cheaper than them. But again, the talent, the skill, and the experience is there. And this would be the only exception when I would hire an agency that does multiple things. And again, as I mentioned, generally speaking, they don't have many clients. Last but not least is systems and speed. You want, as I mentioned, agencies basically are arbitraging their skill and the systems they've built around a certain mechanism. And for example, if you work with someone who's a specialist in a certain area, they've arbitraged it very well. If they're not a specialist, their system is going to be poor. It's going to result in slow communication and poor results. So you want to make sure that these elements are intact and you vet them before working with an agency. So you want to make sure the team is not too small or not too big. Their team has great systems and you're not their smallest client. You're either the average or one of the highest clients. The agency can set the correct expectations and give argumentation why these expectations are as is. They have good pricing that's not too cheap. And when it comes to being too expensive, they show you the ROI and how they're going to get to the ROI. They're focused on one thing, except for the boutique agencies, and they have great systems. And when you follow these things and when you vet the agencies carefully, compare them one against another, you're going to be able to hire the best agency you possibly can.